Welcome to the Sleep Dive channel. We're looking at pages 624 through 657 today. Imagine you're tasked with building a brand new luxury car, right? But your biggest obstacle isn't the engineering, it's the people. This is a fascinating case study from Ford in the early 90s, where a team realized that to build a better car, they first had to completely rebuild how they work together. We're going to explore how they broke down those dreaded corporate silos to create a true learning organization.
So, meet Fred Simon. He was the man in charge of the 1995 Lincoln Continental project. And he was facing this huge problem, one that probably sounds familiar if you've worked in a big company, what he called functional chimneys. Basically silos where different departments act like their own little competing empires.
And here's the heart of the conflict they faced. You see, an engineer's main loyalty wasn't really to the car they were building, it was to their home department. Plastics, climate control, body engineering, you name it. So if you came up with a risky new idea that might be great for the car, but could hurt your department's numbers, well, it was just safer to do nothing. This created a culture of caution, not commitment.
Now, the leadership team knew this had to change. A previous project, a big success, had only been pulled off through what they called managing by panic, just throwing people and money at problems at the very last minute. With budget cuts looming, they knew that just wasn't going to fly anymore. They absolutely had to find a better way.
So the first step in their solution was this really profound realization. Before they could even think about changing the organization's processes, the leadership team understood they had to change themselves. The real work had to start right at the top with their own relationships and how they communicated.
To make this happen, they formed a cross-functional core team of senior managers, and get this, they met every month for a whole year. But these meetings weren't really about strategy. They were about learning how to just talk to each other, using new tools to build some genuine dialogue and trust.
And through this process, they uncovered the real human barriers that were holding them back. It turned out the problem wasn't technical at all. It was about a deep-seated fear of being wrong, a total lack of trust that other people would have your back, and the boss's own ingrained need to control every single detail.
And the change, while it was subtle at first, started to ripple outwards. Other people, like team leader Rick Haas, began to notice a difference in meetings. The senior managers were acting different. They were listening more, especially to bad news. That fear of getting beat up for raising a problem was actually starting to fade. So, with this new foundation of trust starting to form among the leadership, the next challenge was, how do you scale this? How do you get this new way of working out to everyone else? Their solution was something they called the Learning Lab. Okay, now this was not your typical corporate training day with stale biscuits and bad coffee. The Learning Lab was designed as a practice field. They brought in intact teams, people who actually worked together every single day, and had them apply new tools for thinking and communicating to the real messy problems they were currently facing on the car. This quote from an engineer, Julie Petrucci, just captures the feeling perfectly. At first, it was uncomfortable, right? The boss didn't have all the answers. In fact, he was learning right there alongside them. But that discomfort pretty quickly turned into excitement. It created this powerful sense that they were truly all in it together. So they'd built this new foundation of trust, they'd created this practice field, but the huge question remained, would all this investment in relationships and dialogue actually make a difference when it came to, building a car? This is always the moment of truth for any kind of change effort, isn't it? So, did it actually work? Well, the proof was pretty dramatic.
The most incredible proof came early one morning. An engineer, 6 levels down the hierarchy, picks up the phone and calls the program manager, Fred Simon, directly. He tells him he has a problem with the car bodies. He doesn't know the answer, and he wants to stop the entire prototype build to figure it out. To really get how monumental this was, you have to appreciate a few things. First, an engineer at his level would never call the program manager directly. Second, build schedules at Ford were sacred. You just don't stop a build. And third, for an engineer to admit, "I don't know the answer," well, that was traditionally seen as a confession of failure. But in this new culture, his act of courage was celebrated. That one phone call, which was only possible because of this new sense of psychological safety, saved the project from what would have been a total nightmare cycle of fixes and refixes. It ended up saving an absolutely incredible amount of time and money. Here's another amazing story. In one of the follow-up sessions, 2 team leaders, feeling emboldened, finally told an executive, Nick Zaniak, right to his face that his cumbersome approval system was making their lives miserable. They just asked him, "Why do you need this system?"
Now, in almost any other context, Zinyk's response would have been a career-ending insult. But here, his shocking honesty, "It's because I don't trust you," didn't end the conversation. It blew it wide open. It allowed them to finally talk, meaningfully, about the specific issues that had led to that mistrust in the first place.
So, how can we take these lessons from a car company back in the 90s and actually apply them to our own work today? Let's try and distill the key principles into a practical framework.
I think the single biggest lesson is this: focus on the quality of your relationships before you focus on the process. So many change efforts fail because they do it the other way around. They introduce new tools and new software without first building the trust needed to use them properly. The key is to start small, right inside your own team.
And here's a really simple, powerful way to start. In your very next difficult conversation, just make a conscious effort to listen. And I mean really listen. Don't spend the time formulating your rebuttal while the other person is talking. Practice truly hearing their perspective. It's the very first step on the ladder to a better conversation.
Ultimately, the journey of this car-building team reveals a really profound truth about what it takes to build any kind of high-performing organization.
It isn't about adopting some complex management theory or implementing the latest whiz-bang software. It's about getting back to the absolute fundamentals of human interaction. It's about creating enough safety for people to build trust and have the honest conversations they need to solve hard problems together.
And that brings us to a final question for you to reflect on. In your own team or your own organization, where does the most powerful change really need to begin?